Hello, fellow Dungeon Masters. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you read a scroll of arcane magic that simply summons flames at your location? Do you want to develop a severe case of acute existential dread triggered by the distant, highly pitched chirping of a midget? Have you ever wanted to solve segregation with racism? And have you ever considered the practical usage of a mysterious medallion infused with pure concentrated estrogen? All of these questions, and so many more, will be answered within this puzzling world of Barony. Barony, it's a first-person RPG roguelike that is less about exploration and more about delayed expiration. You, much like the skeletons roaming the mines, came here for glory, but instead you will find only the cold clockwork malice of this dungeon. It's a complex game where the strongest ability is to possess basic spatial awareness. Death happens a lot here, so much in fact that the game includes an auto restart option that skips the whole click to try again. Turn it on and watch 5 minutes of adventure becomes 3 seconds of GIF footage. This is where you realize that the game lets you drag up to 3 other unfortunate souls down with you to see how many times you'll die by each other's hands.
Hold up, watch this.
Yes, there is friendly fire. No, I won't turn it off. If I disabled it, we wouldn't get to experience those bonding exercises of shooting a bola at my friend because he walked in front of me and watch him disassemble into a bunch of Legos. The problem is that it requires having people who want to speak to you. No worries, the game is just as good even when played alone. But where to begin? Well, from the Okay, alright, okay, fine, that's how you want it to be. We're going to do this the fun way. And by fun, I mean being unable to equip any useful necklace for half of the game because you put on an amulet of strangulation which immediately constricts around your neck. But you're a skeleton, it has nothing to choke. That is until you drink a potion of polymorph which turns you into a human, which then proceeds to crush your newly formed windpipe and grant you a slow, agonizing death. What if it's blessed instead? Why not find out yourself? In the meantime, we're going to start by creating a local game and choosing what you'll play as. For starters, you can pick a human. Conversely, if you're excited by the other options, such as an insect or the crazy hamburger cook, you'll have to ask your sugar daddy to buy them for you, because those are locked behind DLCs. Something worth mentioning about these races is a unique mechanic of pure spite they trigger in every human they encounter. I mean, who wouldn't want to smash a succubus? No, not that type of smash. To mitigate the constant urge for race war-fueled violence, there's the option to play as a neutered version. And you know what's better than a circumcised incubus? A circumcised incubus punisher. Because fun has a plethora of flavors when you can combine any race with any of the classes to add a unique twist to your playthrough. Like when a friend picks up a skeleton paladin and hands me his starter bottle of holy water, only to realize his true mistake was trusting me not to immediately throw it back at him. After making your beautiful character, you're presented with the game flags. Keep them unmarked. They offer to make the game easier, like removing hunger, but you pay for it by stunning your health regeneration. Once you decline the training wheels, the game drops you outside the dungeon while a mysterious voice whispers sweet nothings in your ear.
Another one joins the fray.
I'm coming to kill you!
Controls are straightforward, assuming you played the tutorial. If you haven't, once you go down the trapdoor, your life expectancy will drop to around 30 seconds before you encounter the nefarious rat. Don't get discouraged, it's normal to lose a few dozen characters until you get the hang of the combat system. You have a light attack and a heavy attack, as well as your offhand. Blocking is done by hitting space while holding an item that changes the icon to a shield. Something worth mentioning is that it doesn't work in the conventional sense, it just increases your armor rating. This leads to the tactical decision of turning your back to an enemy and tanking the hit with your dump truck just to see if something else is trying to sneak up behind you. While holding nothing in your offhand, your night perception improves, making it easier to see in pitch black and reducing the aggro range of enemies. Considering that they're deaf and only detect motion, you can use this to lose a chase or set up a sneak attack. But honestly, you can achieve the same thing by just being fast or, you know, kiting them around corners, pits, and sinks, which despite giving you a few safe drinks will eventually decide to spray you with scalding water for no reason.
You drinking water?
That's disgusting.
You might as well be drinking cum.
This brings us to the volatile nature of the spacebar. You can be mid-sneak only to accidentally swap to a book which causes your character to immediately stand up and alert every enemy you are trying to avoid. But knowing the theory is one thing, surviving the execution segregation is another. Barony loves to play with your expectations, usually by subverting them in the most lethal way possible. For instance, if your armor rating is low, you'll still take damage, but just less of it. And backpedaling in this game is slower than my upload schedule. To kite properly, you have to master the art of the 180-degree panic swivel. You attack, you turn around, you run, and you repeat. You're going to do this a lot, and it's going to be just what you need to take out the most indomitable opponent so far, a blob of green snot. But based on the traces of carnage and the repeated squeaking in the walls, there is something more dangerous than that, and it's numerous. So what better way to take care of our problems than by introducing an immovable object to an unstoppable force, a badass fucking skeleton with a shield. If brute force doesn't work, get a gun. Bad news, gunpowder hasn't been invented yet. But good news, we have the primitive version of it and the cooler version. You can get something like a humble slingshot, which mostly causes light bruises, or a bow. You don't actually need ammo to use bows, but instead you'll use durability, and arrows are more like temporary bow modifiers. Then we have throwables, faster fire rate, innate armor pierce, and the ability to never degrade or break. The catch, because of course there's a catch, is that you have to pick them up. Every single one. It doesn't sound that bad until your entire gameplay loop has devolved into a high-stakes game of 52-card pickup with sharpened scrap metal. If you throw one over a bottomless pit, then congratulations, it now belongs to the void. You could try to optimize by carrying a bow as a backup, but then why not use only a bow? Why would you even want to use throw? Oh, I mean, the damage is quite nice. Let's look at the sharper side of the blade. You can carry a good amount of them in a stack, so maybe it's not that bad. Huh? I had 10 daggers in a stack. Why does the game automatically split them into a stack of 9? Is 9 the limit? Fine, I guess it's what. Considering they usually spawn with some durability loss, you can just repair them with a... What the fuck? Can I at least enchant them? Okay, I almost thought I was going to get upset. You have got to be fucking kidding. Personally, you'd be better off looking for a more intellectual way to blow someone's ass out, like magic. It used to be simple, strong, and quite boring to be fair, but that ended when the devs hit the system with a massive overhaul. It's now a much more interesting concept, with the library ranging from vanilla staples like magic missile and healing to the more exotic grease spray
On my roommate's door.
and metallurgy, which lets you transmute crystal meth armor into pure profit. The list goes on, fracturing further into specific schools of magic. Sorcery is your testicular torsion school of thought. Thaumaturgy is for the submissive support players, and mysticism is... both? I don't know. It has damaging spells, but then it also has Charm Monster and Dominate. I guess it's for the people who want the dungeon to do the work while they sit in the back and watch, or that instead want to spam maximize on their troll friends so that they gain negative dexterity.
I'm so fucking slow. I don't have a full inventory even. Negative 9 dexterity. Minus 10 dexterity.
Then there's the spell books, not to be confused with the regular books such as the Lusty Goblin made. You can learn the spells permanently if you have the brains for it, or just hold and cast the book in your offhand. But having a library in your pocket doesn't mean anything if you don't use it to commit a little bit of genocide. The dungeon is filled with residents who want you dead, and we are going to respond in kind. Killing them fills your experience bar, a process that rewards you with stats on level up. Everything you do increases your skills by 1 on a scale from 0 to 100, and hitting the cap grants a unique legendary bonus. Knowing that, you can decide how you're going to offend the local ecosystem. If you want to outsource your violence while you hang back and provide moral support, go Succubus Conjurer, or you could roll a Vampire Healer and decide to violate the Hippocratic Oath by practicing medicine with your bare hands. But my personal favorite is the Insectoid Sapper. Is it because of the innate spell, the equipment, the high-level synergy it could? No, it's because it starts with a frying pan. You see, for an insectoid, the distinction between dinner and magical power is non-existent. By cooking and eating everything that moves, the frying pan functions as a biological furnace that converts protein directly into mana, which makes me a far more reliable wizard. The possibilities are vast and they require experimentation, something you should get comfortable doing because as you descend, the dungeon demands a more nuanced flavor of brutality. That brutality starts with the bestiarity, which ranges from giant rats and bats up to demons and cacatuars. Aside from the different health pools, they act as an IQ test for damage types. Scarabs, for instance, are highly resistant to magic, yet they fold like a wet paper towel the moment you apply slicing damage. Then you have spiders, which have zero resistances, whose only purpose is to exist as a high-speed annoyance and a very good distraction, until you approach the chest they were guarding, only for that safety to shatter when the game reveals it has mimics. These things will happily take bites out of your flesh while stripping the clothes off your body. They'll even unequip your gear while you're successfully blocking their chomp. But every problem has a solution. In this case is the seemingly useless locking spell. If you shoot a mimic with it, you force its mouth shut, causing it to take constant suffocation damage until the effect runs out or it dies. And once the mimic has been properly silenced, you can return to your state of clinical kleptomania. Early game, it's entirely about risk management, so get used to picking up every piece of garbage you find, even if that means you have to take them by force from the previous owners. Sometimes that garbage is stuck behind the locked door. If you find the key, it will lead you to a treasure room, but before committing, you can peek through the door to see what lies inside. Is the loot actually good? Of course not, that's why they let you look inside. You could try to lockpick the door instead, but at this stage in the game, I wouldn't bother. Although, on the rare occasion, the room is worth the effort of playing prop hunt with every barrel and box of the level, but I suggest you still keep your eyes peeled. If you see items suspiciously stacked next to a chest or a pink dot where the chest is, that's your signal to start blasting the furniture. Whoa there, buddy. Don't be so hasty about putting that thing on yourself. Everything you find is unidentified, and equipping gear blindly is the easiest way to handicap your run. You'll have to wait until you appraise them, which happens automatically once your skill is high enough. Yeah, I know, the game calls it Lord, but that doesn't make any sense. I am looking at this medallion to figure out if it's going to choke me to death, which is, by definition, the act of estimating or judging the nature or value of something. That is what appraisal is. What is Lord going to do for me when I can't remove a piece of gear because it's possessed by a spiteful spirit? Ah yes, I know the ancient history of this glove, specifically the chapter where they fused to my hand so hard that they lowered my dexterity. You can remove items by breaking them, clearing the curse, or letting the aforementioned mimic eat them off your body. However, depending on your race, being cursed might actually be the goal. If you're playing as a succubus or an incubus, the alignment is inverted. Blessed items still give you stat benefits, but they behave like regular curses by locking onto your body and refusing to be removed. Meanwhile, cursed items are your blessed gear, and as any player driven by morbid curiosity knows, drinking a bottle of cursed water will drop the quality of a random equipped item. This reverses the blessing into a curse proportional to its value, and the best part, it only takes one cursed bottle to mass produce the stuff, allowing you to synthesize the distribution of the forbidden bathwater. But back to figuring out what this triangular yellow shape is. What the Appraising is a slow process which gets better the more you do it. So you're going to start small thinking, yes, this tin filled with horse meat is rather moldy, before throwing it away because you need a tin opener to eat it. A luxury that only appears in abundance when you aren't carrying tins and never when you are. But what if you're a smooth brain who starts with zero lore or a negative perception? You could find a pair of glasses to become smarter, but if that pair is cursed, then congratulations, not only are you more of an idiot than before, but now you look like one. At that point, your only remaining option is to pray that you level up your perception by 1, but the more likely scenario involves you finding and chugging unidentified potions, which have a small chance to level up your lore. After you've done vacuuming the level of every scrap, you'll find a trapdoor to the next floor. But if you see a pulsating icon appear on the screen, I suggest you evacuate immediately.
The Minotaur is coming.
The Minotaur isn't per se a boss battle, he's like a scheduled environmental hazard, like playing hopscotch on a high-speed train tracks. You have 3.5 minutes at best before he arrives, though there's a small chance the Zap Brigade will spawn to distract him. If you're lucky, the problem solves itself, leaving behind blessed equipment from the previous owners and an expensive gem. But I'd still stay near an exit, because the dwellers of the dungeons are partially lobotomized. If they don't accidentally block his path, they will just lose line of sight of the giant giant cow beelining to turn your ribcage into a folding chair. Aside from the standard exit, you'll notice set pieces with the secondary exit. This one, for instance, requires pulling 2 levers first. These are secret places, harder optional levels for the well-prepared. If you're a new player, you should probably stay away, but I know you won't. You'll just go down this trapdoor only to find a very specific brand of suffering. And what kind of horror are we talking about? One thing is certain. It's not quiet. In no time, you'll be bombarded by a volley of what I can only describe as senile old men chirping, and I don't mean the past 10 or so minutes. If you hesitate to find the source, something will wander from your blind spot and lob lightning at you. In a state of sheer panic, you'll venture into the unlit labyrinth, look behind you, and get stopped by a wall. Except this wall retaliates swiftly and silently, like a fart in a crowded elevator. Welcome to the Epstein mines. Your balls will get electrocuted by gnomes and smashed by trolls. Why aren't they fighting each other? Because they share an affinity, meaning they won't fight each other unless provoked. But with great danger comes great fortune. The best method is to take them one at a time and snowball once you find a staff of lightning, or just equip a ring of conflict and listen to the grunts and screams echoing through the walls. Alternatively, you are here for the first artifact armor. It will be placed on a pedestal in a room full of magic traps, but the architecture of this level is only a suggestion with how many pickaxes you'll pry from the gnome's cold dead hands. These artifacts are unbreakable and don't degrade, but they are pretty heavy. If you're successful, by the time you strip the mines, you'll be overcumbered, and we've already discussed how important speed is. In Barony, it doesn't take much for you to die and lose those hours of progress, or we can pretend that didn't happen and just go back to the main menu before dying. That will be our little secret. As much as I've painted these secret levels as elaborate death traps, some of them are sanctuaries. Take the Minehead town, for example. The town features 4 humble little shops, each containing a merchant. These guys normally spawn in random levels and only buy specific item types dictated by the sign near their entrance. If the picture is a bag, you're in for a treat because it's a general store that can buy anything, so you can offload the literal tons of equipment and gems you've been hauling, assuming they aren't appraised as worthless glass. But before you step inside, you need to understand that these shopkeepers are specialized in the magical art of racial profiling, where they can judge you or your followers by association, meaning that if you're not polymorphed into a human and they catch even a glimpse of one of your monstrous followers, even if that follower is technically human, they will not hesitate to start a race war that the shopkeeper wins 90% of the time. If you find the subjugation annoying, you could always put the merchant 6 feet under. Just be wary that they won't drop their entire inventory and you will become a permanent enemy of the Merchants Guild. Normally, that's an irreversible consequence, unless you have an amulet of sex change. Slip that on and suddenly the guild is oblivious to your crimes because they literally don't recognize the person that just hit them 5 seconds ago. But if you're playing as a monster race, the guild already wants you dead on sight, so being wanted is whatever. In that case, you might as well go for the 100% discount.
My main goal is to
All you have to do is position yourself between 2 shopkeepers. One stray magic missile to the back of the colleague's head is all it takes to spark a 30 seconds professional dispute, where both merchants trade lethal energy balls back and forth like it's a game of tennis. Stand back, enjoy the show, and remember, it's not a crime if the witnesses kill each other first. Now, if you're interested in the civilized way to exchange goods, you can approach them as a human to begin a trade. As I mentioned, they are specialists. If you try to sell your throwing access to a bookstore, the merchant will just stare at you. But while you're there, buy some apples. Not because you're hungry, but to grind your trading skill until your irresistible riz forces them to accept any item you throw on the counter and also offer fair prices. Without a high trading skill, these merchants will straight up scam you for every gold piece you have, simply because you look gullible. But sometimes the merchant isn't the one trying to scam you. So I would say that the shops double as a gambling den for the discerning addicts, because you'll see 2 identical items with vastly different price tags. A high value item usually carries a hidden attribute like water walking, bonus constitution, or even flight. Oh my god. Given that staying alive is generally considered the correct way to play, you'll want to keep these forever. But if you adapt a face tagging strategy, they will inevitably break. Hey, remember that time you got hit by a slime and watched your amulet of magic reflection shatter in half a second? Apparently, the slop spat out by a sliding amorphous blob of water counts as magic. Let's not forget that you can find its toxic cousin harassing you since the first floor. So naturally, you think that after watching your armor melt because a puddle sneezed at you, you think to grab the Amulet of Poison Resistance because, you know, it gives resistance to poison, which means it will make the poison less damaging, right? Did you know that there are 5 slime variants in the game and it only works on one of them? And even for that specific version, it doesn't even mitigate the impact damage. You just don't feel sick afterwards. And if you think I'm being too judgmental over a piece of jewelry, let's look at the competition. There are 6 things in this dungeon that can poison you. The slime spray, insectoids who take 5 working days to fire their poison spray, potion of sickness, fountains, spider attacks, and hunting ammo. That's it. Even if you're absolutely terrified of a spider bite, the effect doesn't even last that long, and anyone with 2 brain cells and a mana bar can just learn Blood Ward that grants immunity to poison and bleeding while providing damage resistance against poisonous creatures. You know, a feature that the amulet doesn't provide at all. If you ever feel useless, remember there's a blindfold you can tie over your eyes just to gain blindness. But if I think about it, even that is useful to find gold as a gnome. So even a red piece of fabric is more useful than that amulet. I'd also make fun of the Amulet of Strangulation too, but even that has a niche utility for succubi, or to tell a follower to equip it and watch them slowly asphyxiate while they try to eat a piece of cheese. Speaking of leading people to their doom, leadership is the skill that determines exactly how many people you can convince to join your suicide mission. As the skill increases, your commands become increasingly invasive, eventually allowing you to micromanage their diet, their wardrobe, and their sleeping schedule. The leadership tooltip mentions that it gives your followers dexterity, which results in them being faster. That is not entirely false, but what it conveniently forgets to mention is that it also increases their range damage. You see where I'm going with this? Give them a bow, high dexterity, and a quiver. In their hands, a single arrow provides unlimited special ammo, thus transforming your followers into portable sentries. Your job now is to become a slab of stone. Stack constitution and armor, keep your block up, and draw the aggro. This might sound like a bad deal since you aren't getting the kills, but that isn't an issue. Followers get bonus EXP for the kill while you still pocket the base amount even if you haven't done any damage. If you still want to level your own skills, just slightly tenderize the enemies yourself, step aside and let the firing squad take the kill, and in no time they will out-level you. Just some word of advice, keep them away from any sources of confusion or charm, and if you find a spell of cure ailment, always keep that prepared. But even in a range advantage, managing followers is like tard wrangling, because they like to walk up to a threat and attempt to point blank it with a bow, but at the end of the day, their idiocy is only half the battle. The other half is the dungeon itself, which is a meat grinder that can take up to 4 hours for a successful run. There are 7 districts, each with their own special brand of bullshit. Do you like traps and bodies of water that slimes can spray you into? Or perhaps you like getting jump scared by a clown car of well-prepared gnome thieves? Every region is unique, but any sane person will agree that the Sand Labyrinth is the most tedious, boring shithole in the game, followed closely by the Citadel. Yeah, I am having so much fun walking into dead ends and stopping to pull levers every 5 seconds just to traverse a claustrophobic maze. Usually, you'll have a pretty good build halfway through the game, which kind of makes the game boring near the Citadel, but what if it's not the case? What if you've developed the courage to play hardcore mode, which magically transforms every enemy you encounter into a Jet Panzer E100? What the fuck?
What the fuck?
To survive, you can discover the simple yet overpowered art of mixing random liquids to achieve game-changing results. Ideally, results that don't involve you exploding on the spot. You'll first need to get your hands on an alembic. Brewing requires simply combining 2 potions together, but what are you supposed to combine? This leaves you with 2 options, trial and error or doing what everyone else does and pulling up the in-game compendium. The chemistry doesn't change between runs, but finding the ingredients for these experiments is a chore, unless you're playing as a goatman, though it does require passing a mandatory intoxication check because you'll be actively trying to outrun a permanent hangover. If you want 50 copies of a specific potion without having to find or brew them, you can find a sink, fill an empty bottle with tap water, throw it in the alembic with your target potion, and you have a chance to clone it. What we really care about are potions of healing for numbing the pain and potions of firestorm for causing it. But what about the other less desirable potions? There's still use for them by improving your food. To be more specific, rations. You can cook them using food at randomly spawning crockpots or the frying pan given when you play as a sapper. Want some sweet meatballs? Pour some fruit juice on them for health and mana regen. How about bitter meatballs, seasoned with a dust bowl? Or my personal favorite, chopping up a rare infected branch bowl to make a herbal ration that gives magical resistance and acute gastroenteritis. Food is more than just buffing your stats. It's a constant looming threat you have to manage for the entire run. Hunger isn't an issue until it suddenly, violently is. The mines will present you with a plethora of it, which makes you careless. You leave the bread on the floor because it's too heavy, or you'll eat moldy scraps that force you to vomit, leaving you even hungrier than when you started. But as you descend, the abundance dries up. The floor becomes a barren wasteland, and you'll find yourself scouring every corner for a single maggoty crust just to postpone the stat drawbacks and your inevitable expiration by starvation. It only takes one great famine to realize the weight of your arrogance, for discarding a piece of meat in favor of another extravagant mineral you'll never live to sell. While this food is good at filling the holes blasted through your body, you still have to deal with the holes in your sweater. That can be solved by tinkering, but between you and me, I'm not thrilled to start lockpicking every single door in the dungeon just to reach level 60 so I can finally patch up a pair of leather gloves, and I suspect you aren't either. So what's the play? Scrolls. They're everywhere, usually stuffed into chests or sold by shopkeepers who clearly can't read them either. They range from simple utility like identifying an item to scrolls of repair, which are, they're so good. However, most of the time you have to pray the game gives them to you. But there is a way to bypass the scarcity, and it's pretty self-explanatory, yet for some folks like me, this was a revelation even after 200 hours. As a reminder, you find scrolls unidentified. Even after you figure out what they do, the original cryptic name remains on the item. If you got mildly excited over a scroll of enchant armor and upgraded your stuff without paying attention to the gibberish name, you are in for a bad time, because you'll be staring at a massive list of literal nonsense when you want to inscribe something. You'll start picking at random, guessing blindly while wasting precious resources to, at best, summon 3 ally rats and at worst set yourself on fire. But why are we obsessing over these scrolls? Especially the enchanting ones. A scroll of repair is cool and all, but it's not like your gear is made out of eggshells. It lasts a respectable amount of time, and if you get your hands on artifact gear, they don't even degrade anyway. No, we want these because blessing your gear does way more than bumping your armor and damage. It scales every single secondary stat on that item. If you want to fuel your inner wizard insectoid, throw a few scrolls at a chef's hat to not only bump your chance of getting meat from kills, but to give everything you eat way better satiation. Now, eating a single scrap of food, even something as simple as a ration, translates into more mana. I could go on about how pairing a blessed laurel with a follower under the effects of troll's blood makes them practically immortal, but the absolute peak for me, it's the Goblin Shaman. This class can transform into 4 different monsters, but it has one glaring drawback. The Goblin is functionally illiterate. No matter how high his magic skill is, he's too stupid to learn the spells, which theoretically restricts him to a singular playstyle. But, oh sweet summer child, you have no idea what you're sitting on. A word of advice, spend your early levels as a rat if you're building towards the imp, and as a spider if you're building towards the troll, because your stat growth on level up alters based on your current form. For our purposes, we're playing as the vermin, which means your early game will suck ass. Your equipment is functionally useless for defense because while transformed you get 0 AC, though secondary effects like the intelligence gained from the artifact helmet still works. As for your weapon, fisting becomes your universal damage source. Once you unlock the imp, it's time to metagame. I hope you haven't been tossing those spellbooks because the imp can hold and cast from books and staffs. Since we spent the early game suffering as a rodent, our intelligence is going to be high, and the imp form provides a 33% intelligence multiplier on top of that. But you still can't learn the spell, so what's the point? Let me tell you, it does not matter. You don't need to memorize anything when you can just read the words directly off the page. Spells cast this way are significantly more potent than the memorized versions, and that bonus gets even juicier if you apply some enchant armor scrolls to them. There is a catch though, spamming a spell book consumes its durability quite fast. Now, because we picked Goblin, you'd think our innate passive for longer lasting gear would save us. You'd be right, except the passive doesn't follow you into your transformation. The moment you become an imp, your Goblin privileges expire. I know what you're thinking, that sounds entirely anti-synergistic. Why not just use Vampire or Automaton instead? And to that I say, yeah, you're kind of right there. A smart, handsome person will do exactly that. I am neither, so instead we commit to a hybrid playstyle. Melee weapons with cheap spells like Force Bolt while in the Goblin form, and the moment you need something with more stopping power, you shift back into the Imp and let it rip. One thing worth mentioning though, a book will get destroyed the moment its durability hits 0. What differentiates this from your regular armor though is that unless it's blessed, it burns for 1 blessing instead. You can avoid that entirely by keeping an enchanted feather on hand, which is conveniently one of the Shaman starting items that can be refilled with scrolls of charging. So at this stage, you're essentially a flying artillery unit capable of recruiting an entire squad of imps to blow the dungeons to smithereens. Throw alchemy into the mix to brew your own mana potions in case the 1200% mana regen is not enough. Finish the feast with some sour rations to boost your magical power even further, and thus you have completely restructured the food chain. We've finally ascended to a point where the beef doesn't hunt the butcher anymore. Or at least that's what I'd be saying if I didn't get immediately curb stomped by a crystal golem in the crystalline caves. The game was just waiting for the right moment to catch up, and in the caves it finally did. But let me tell you something, after countless deaths via boulders, overconfidence, greed and more boulder, nothing can prepare me from dying in the same embarrassing way because I have to juggle all the systems at once. Edru, Herbrum, Riquito and Meat. What do these 3 brave adventurers have in common? I'll tell you, they all fucking died to the same bottomless pit. While the game is kind enough to prevent you from walking off ledges, it does not extend the courtesy to flying over them, and not paying attention to your source of levitation has devastating consequences. And every single one of my broken runs ended the same way, swallowed by a pit I dug with my own intelligence. So, why bother being smart? Why not embrace the path of least resistance? Sometimes, you just want to punch people very hard. You know what? Or better yet, you could just spend 6 hours scrapping everything in every level just to pre-fill the room with enough fire mines that both final bosses die in a fraction of a second. Either way, this game is exceptional. Charming graphics, relentless chaos, and the music, everything just ties together so nicely. But if I have to play devil's advocate for like 5 seconds, there are some critiques that need to be stated. The multiplayer. I guess you could say it exists. If you try to join a visible game, you're usually greeted with connection errors or sent straight back to the main menu. And if you use mods, which helps with how neurotic this game can get, you have to reload them every single time only to be greeted once again with a save file incompatible error. Why? I have a theory. When creating a new run, the game sets your lobby to friends only by default. Fair enough, but when you load the same lobby to continue the run later, the game sets it to open and you cannot change it. And you know what that means? You get idiots like me who see those public lobbies, try to join, and instantly break the connection. It's not entirely impossible to play with randoms, but it is rare to find an accessible server hosted by someone who isn't running their internet of a potato in Zimbabwe. The specific item interactions are great, but some systems deserve to be way more unique. Take the cursed effects for scrolls. A cursed scroll of charging just acts exactly like a scroll of destroy armor. I didn't know that, and as a consequence, I destroyed my excellent quality duck. How about letting it curse my enchanted feather instead, allowing me to craft my very own cursed scrolls of enchantment? You might call that hyper niche, but consider the other mechanics already in play. Did you know that you can remove the wanted status by using a spell of charm on any shopkeeper? And if you use confusion instead, you can even trade with them as a monster race. That makes complete sense, yet it's incredibly niche, and not that many people know about that. You know what else makes perfect sense yet doesn't work? Standing on top of a lava source to cook food with your pan. The game has no issues letting me levitate directly over a molten fissure without setting my shoes on fire, so why can't I use it as a stove? Speaking of food, expand the cooking. Let me fry the meat I have or combine ingredients into actual meals. You're telling me my culinary skill doesn't extend past the point of rolling ingredients into a basic meatball, yet I can identify gems worth 2 sticks of ram? I surely have the necessary lore required to take some rat meat and slide it between 2 slices of moldy garlic bread I found on the dungeon floor. Come on, turning wheel. And finally, make the top hat give charisma. It's a top hat. I look dapper. Give me the stat. Maybe all of these will be addressed in the second part of Instruments of Destruction, but let's be real, it's far more likely the devs would just give us more creative ways to blow ourselves up. In summary, Barony, it's a game for people who find comfort in the inevitable. It's one of the few games that is fair because it gives you every tool required to become an absolute monster and then mocks you when you're too stupid to use them. It's fun alone, but even greater with friends. It's not for everyone, but I definitely gift it to my friend just so I can watch them choke on a piece of cursed jewelry.
Ah, fuck. I'm strangling myself. Fuck, I'm a human. I cannot, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. No. Fuck.
Hopefully, you've learned enough here to avoid a similar fate. Also, thank you very much for watching till the end. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this type of content, be sure to do all the things that will please the YouTube overlords. And a huge thanks to my sandwich backers as well as all my daily benefactors on Patreon, the true supporters of quality and delicious content. Before I take off, I want you to leave you with a warning. Look closely at this. This red floating sphere might look like a mundane party balloon to you, but make no mistake, this flying entity will bring humanity to extinction, and only then, a different species will take up the burden to fight an unending war against them, armed with bullets, high explosives, dark magic, and lots of darts. Until next time!